1, 2, 3, 4.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Ladies and gentlemen.
That's right, the big dick is here. Get ready. May we start?
What's up, y'all? Welcome back to another Tasty Tuesdays talk with zbrah and Geebs. I am zbrah, and I am always happy to introduce my lovely co-host who's always with me, Miss Geebs.
What is going on, zbrah? It's always nice to be with you.
How's it going?
It's good. It's a beautiful day. LA's shining. Beautiful. A little chilly out there, but you know what? That's fine. It's fall season, and here we are.
It's our fall season. Believe it or not, it's November. But we are going to get into our wonderful guest today, and I'm going to have you introduce yourself, and let's get it on.
Oh, what's good, everybody? My name is Zander. Pleasure to be on the show this Tasty Tuesday. I am a life coach and astrologer.
Yes, anything else you want to mention besides that?
And it's super duper human.
Super duper human. Yeah, let's just start there. Life coach, astrologer.
Okay, life coach. I feel like I have to explain what a life coach is to a lot of people.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I wouldn't, not to me. I mean, I would hire you if I would say it's like a therapist in a way.
Exactly.
Right? I would use it, and that's how I would interpret it. Like I want to talk to someone. I want to better my life. I want to figure out some issues in my life. Who am I going to call? It's either I'm going to go like spirituality, I'm going to go life coach, I'm going to see a therapist, I'm going to talk to someone. I hope someone would talk to someone if they had some problems.
I hope so too. I wish it was that easy.
Mm-hmm.
I wish it was that easy. Yeah, basically there is a difference between a therapist and a life coach. So a therapist, a lot of people find it's just emotional dumping and then what's next? You know, like someone sits there and listens to you versus a life coach is kind of implementing like actionable suggestions and things like that. Also, legality is I can say whatever I want as a life coach to somebody, honestly. And as a therapist, there's certain things that I can't say. You know, like I can tell someone you're being a piece of shit today, you know, but a therapist shouldn't say that. And then a
good therapist.
A good therapist shouldn't say that. Yeah, I found a lot of people just leave therapy kind of empty. Like I said, it's just emotional dumping. And from my experience, a lot of my clients are like, they have literally left their therapist after talking with me. You know, they feel like it's a lot more in depth and just hearing something versus just, okay, you're just talking to somebody that's just not really giving any feedback or telling you where to go, giving any direction. Actually, it's just literally emotional dumping. And then, psychiatrists is like they emotional dumping, but they will prescribe you drugs. Mm-hmm. I don't as much prescribe people drugs, but people are into different things. So I don't know, I'm not opposed to
just recreational drugs.
Yeah, psychedelics maybe.
Yeah,
you know?
Microdose.
Yeah, exactly. I'm about that life.
So, therapist, you have an hour session.
Mm-hmm.
Life coach, same thing? Or do you, how does that go?
Me personally, I say 45 minutes to an hour. And with that, that's another difference with this therapist. If we're up to an hour, I'm not going to just be like, you're in the middle of a breakthrough. Okay, bye. Like, I'm done. You know, versus a therapist is kind of like, time is up for today, you know?
Write me that check.
Yeah, write me that check.
Same time tomorrow. Thank you. Okay, bye.
That's literally how it goes. But yeah, with life coach, I feel like it's a lot more expansive. Yeah, and people just feel more comfortable. They feel it's a more personal experience, more genuine experience versus, okay, I'm just here, like you said, to give me your time and your money, and like that's it.
Where would this happen? Anywhere, right?
Where did this happen?
No, like if I set up an appointment with you.
Oh yeah, anywhere. Meeting in person, or as of right now, the past 2 years, they're happening during phone calls or
virtual.
Zoom, virtual, which I prefer in person, most certainly, but then there's people where I'm like, no, I don't want to see that person, you know? But surprisingly, a lot of people prefer phone calls, I think until they get like comfortable. And then there's people where I kind of feel like seeing them in person isn't best. You know, some people meet me like, oh, you look so young, you know? So they feel like, oh, they don't want to listen to me, which they never didn't, but just that comment alone, I feel like kind of builds up a ball, you know?
That's a compliment because you have a beard, you have long hair. If you ain't looking older now, that's you got luck on your side.
Hopefully I can keep
just
that
say
going.
That's the wisdom.
That's
it keeps me young.
It's turning gray a little bit. That's the wisdom too, though. I guess that mark of wisdom finally.
So, if I spoke to you, had a session with you, 1 hour, what would be some details or information you give me that would lead me to leave my therapist?
First, actually asking why you're seeing a therapist in the first place, seeing how effective it is, how your experience is with your therapist. And most people feel like, oh, I've been doing it for a while, but there's no feeling of growth. You know, it's one thing to tell someone, okay, you're kind of sick, you know, but then what's next? Like, how do I go about healing? You know, like, what would you say is my sickness? How did I even get sick in the first place? So kind of just profound questioning to dive into all of those details that people don't really touch or understand on their own, you know? So basically just exploration of someone's life through profound questioning to elicit some type of breakthrough.
So what type of person would you say that usually calls you?
That usually calls me midlife crisis. Definitely midlife crisis. And the other, which is my favorite, which I call like quarter life crisis, which is right before your Saturn return. Not to dive into astrology, but so that would be age 28 to 32.
So that's the quarter crisis, life crisis.
Yeah.
And then midlife isn't midlife usually 40?
Yeah, like late 40s, 50s. Okay. Those are the ones that are like, oh, you're so young.
So you like the ones that are quarter life crisis?
Definitely.
Why is that?
Because that just the whole Saturn return.
Saturn return.
Yeah, what is that? I've heard that a couple times.
If you want to go to astrology, we'll go right into astrology.
I mean, it went there. So Saturn return.
I just know there's rings around Saturn.
There is.
And I didn't know it ever left.
Those rings are walls and limitations in your subconscious.
Okay.
So when Saturn returns, you're forced to face those rings, as you said. You're forced to face those fears. It's literally like that wake up, what the fuck moment. I can curse, right? That's totally fine.
Yeah, of course.
I already did.
I'll put a beep.
Yeah, that wake up moment where your morals change, you know, your perception of things kind of change, and you're forced to face your fears. Any limitations that you have begin to dissolve. So getting people that are starting that transition to help give them some kind of guidance is the most exciting. I feel like the most favorite. That's when you just become more disciplined. Like what you thought was important in life kind of changes. And that usually happens around 37 to 32, depending on where Saturn was when you were born.
So Saturn returns during that age?
Yeah, so basically returning means it goes a full cycle back to it was when you were born.
It takes like 27 something, 20 plus.
Yeah, 27 to 30 years or so.
Oh, so yeah, that happens a few times in your lifetime. Like, yeah, that's right. Yeah, well, talking off there, I was mentioning someone read my chart. She was mentioning all that, like every 30 some years, this moment happens in your life. So that's interesting. So there's a lot of crises going on in that during that time.
Yeah, and just a lot of psychological changes. You know, like your morals literally change. Like I said, what you thought was important is like no longer important, and you're just seeking like, how do I break these walls of limitation? You know?
So that could go, depending on what type of person you are, that could be a positive or a negative, definitely, right?
Yeah, I mean, Saturn is seen as a malefic, which is a negative thing, but I think there's always opportunity to make anything constructive. That's just my view. I think anything can be constructive. It's all about what you take from it. But even with that, it depends on the placement, what particular part of your life is going to happen. If Saturn is in your house of careers, and it's like, this may be the day that you walk off of your job and be like, you know what, this is not what I want to do. Taking that extra risk, and it's going to feel almost like out of your control.
How do you get someone to actually think that way, though? Or I mean, obviously it takes a lot of work for some people. Some people it's more natural, but to tell someone, you know, you just gotta use those negatives and put in a constructive way to be positive and, you know, and do something with your life, you know?
Yeah, do something with your life, fucking loser.
Get your shit together.
That's how I tell
that's what together, man.
I mean, that's how I would tell them, but I mean,
Hey, Saturn's kicking your ass. Get your shit together right now.
Basically, I'll tell you, it depends on the person I'm talking to. Like a lot of people say, oh, what's your structure? Like, honestly, it depends on the person I'm talking to. Like, everyone's different. I think everyone speaks a different language. I think I excel at understanding people's language and speaking to that. Catering to that. There's some clients where I'm like, yeah, you need to get your shit together. Like, literally, we'll say that to them. And then there's some where I'll like I do this thing where I backtrack, like let people understand their strengths that they may not recognize. Like, say there's a challenge in your life where you feel like you didn't have discipline at this moment. You know, I ask you questions to bring up another time in your life when I know you had discipline. So that helps you understand, okay, so it's not that you lack discipline. You know what I mean? Like you're just not directing it in a certain way. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Where it's like, yeah, helping people understand what their strengths are.
I think most people lack discipline.
In certain areas of life. I think
yeah.
everyone is disciplined in a certain area of their life. And I think
Fun.
everyone is not disciplined, in
fun.
certain areas for sure. Or at one point in their life, they were disciplined or they had to be. You know what I mean? Like I think everyone was faced with that. So I would sometimes kind of remind them of that time in their life to help them understand they do have it within them. You know, they may be just so far off with their lifestyle that I feel like impairs your strength. You know, and those are the people. It's like I'm not going to be as straightforward and hard on them. It's like get your shit together. You know, it's like okay, what do you actually want out of life?
Do you do like a 12-step program or?
I do offer a 12-session program.
Use my psyche.
Exactly, 12-session program for sure. Which I call like, just get off of the bench and into the game, become the MVP of your life.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean. What more would you want?
Yeah.
I mean, why wouldn't you want to be the MVP of your life?
Why would you not? So with that, it's like, you know, I say quarters of like, helping someone understand their strengths. And then it kind of turned into like the darker side of like helping them understand where they have just totally bombed in life, you know? But with that realization, it seems like a low point, but you have to almost push people there to realize it's like their decisions are creating their life. You know, and like as much as you feel bad about it, that also helps you to understand how much control you actually have if you start making different decisions.
Do you find that the midlife crisis people can be very similar to the quarter life crisis?
Oh, definitely. Definitely.
Just different in age.
different in age and a different type of stubbornness. For sure. I feel like the quarter life, they don't really know what they want. You know, they just know it's something different. I feel like the midlife, it's like, okay, they have experiences and know what they do and don't like. Hopefully they're a lot more self-aware. But the quarter life, you know, the Saturn return, pre-Saturn return, they're just like, I thought this is what I wanted. I have no idea actually who I am. I've just been who my parents wanted me to be, society's telling me to be, but I feel like there's something in me that will not allow me to do that anymore.
So do you have, our clients usually, because you said you put in astrology into your life coaching, but do some reject it? Like, oh, I don't want to hear that.
Oh, definitely. I'm still using it behind the doors though, whether they like it or not.
I mean, you'll know if you're using it, but you could change your language.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, in my consultations, I ask people.
And you're like reading the chart.
Yeah. So I ask people for their birthday, you know, just like, oh, let me just ask you like.
Your birthday. Yeah. What time were you born?
First, just throw it in there, like casually, like, hey,
give me your first.
What time were you born?
Yeah.
Social security number.
Like, what's your name? Where do you live? And what time and city were you born in?
This is important.
Okay. Yeah. So I kind of just like slide it in like that. But then I ask like, okay, do you have any religious beliefs that I should be considerate of? You know, and then I say, hey, I do implement astrology. Are you opposed to that or not? Because some people are like, no, I'm Christian, whatever that means, that they don't like that. And I'm like, okay, take note, but I still got your birthday though. So I can't go too far, but after a while, honestly, there's people that completely convert.
But you tell them after, like, I've been influenced by astrology.
No, but if it's someone that I feel like I want to pull up their chart and explain it to them, like it would help them down to timing, I'll definitely be like, this is explained in astrology. You know, just like I'll keep on kind of dropping that bomb, like, oh, sorry, I forgot. Like, you don't want to hear about astrology.
Well, I was thinking, because if you read someone's chart, you can find out a lot about the person from just those dates, like you said, right?
Well,
and then once you start telling someone, wouldn't they be surprised? Usually?
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. Most of the people that are opposed to astrology only know their sun sign. That's it. I don't.
And then what is your sun, like, for people that don't know?
Your sun sign is where the sun was when you were born. You know, that's what most people are familiar with. What's your sign? What are you? What's your zodiac? It's literally just asking, where's the sun when you were born? That's it.
And that's just one part of your personality?
That's
or
one part of your personality that is considered, I mean.
What other aspects are there?
Closest thing to identity is the sun, as well as what's real to you, your source of power, as well as your ego. So obviously there's a big attachment to that and someone how to identify just the sun, but there's so many other depths, other aspects that you brought up. Your emotional depth, you know, which would be the moon, you know, your kind of like primal urges, sense of survival, which would be Mars. You know, when it comes to love and affection, things like that, your interests, what you're attracted to would be Venus. as I talk about Saturn, is more so your sense of discipline, structure, the beginning and end of things, your fears, your kinks. It's always a good one.
What's another one?
Neptune would be your dream state.
What's Uranus?
What's Uranus? Uranus is one of my favorites.
Oh, I bet it is.
So Uranus speaks to the places in your life that you stand against the status quo. You know, where are you weird, basically? That's what Uranus is.
That's why it's called Uranus.
I mean, it makes a lot of sense, right? Like, where are you weird? Where do you challenge society? Where are you just like kind of abruptly weird?
What is the rising?
What's the rising? The rising is basically just saying what sign was rising at your time of birth, as far as like the horizon, literally. And that has to do with your physical self, a lot to do with your personality as well. Your physical self, physical vitality, and also how other people perceive you, like the first impression you make on people. And it's more so how you go about life achieving your other needs and desires. Not so much who you are, but how you express yourself and how you're perceived by others.
Makes sense. When did you start implementing, or was it always like, was it like into astrology before you started life coaching, or what came first? Let me ask that. The chicken or the egg? No.
Definitely into astrology first, but I definitely started a practice of life coaching and then saw a platform to implement astrology. At the end of the day, I mean, astrology is psychology. Like a lot of the major psychologists will credit a lot of their work based off of astrology. That's what people don't understand. It's like, it's older than any psychology, the practice of astrology. So yeah, I think I found a way for it to directly go hand in hand. And I think it makes the life coaching experience a lot more personal, you know, versus someone being like, oh, I do this to everybody. Like all my clients get the same, you know, workbook and like all this stuff. I'm like, okay, no, I can speak to you a little more personally because of this. Like I see exactly what you're going to at this moment, how it's affecting you. So yeah, definitely the interest in astrology first, ongoing practice, life coaching, but quickly found a way to implement it into my coaching. Most certainly, it's been cool. People are very receptive of it. I think it makes it a lot more effective. There's people that obviously have interest in one and not the other, but you know, I'm doing both no matter what.
So what led into you getting into astrology, as far as like studying it and not only implementing it, but implementing it within yourself and seeing the correlations of your life and your chart?
I think, as you said, everyone kind of starts with herself. You know, even I feel like as young as elementary school, you hear something about Zodiac signs, or you've read it in like a magazine or something like that. And I feel like I extremely identify with mine, which further diving into it, I see why me particularly identifies with being a Scorpio more than other people, because I have most of my planets in Scorpio. But yeah, so that interest already, and I feel like anything honestly to do with mysticism and the stars, I've always been drawn to. Like as a kid, I could literally look up at the sky and just tell you what time it was. Things like that. So I feel like there was always just an attraction to the sky. And I think the idea of religion just transferred to something bigger. I was definitely raised very, very Christian. My mom was like a minister, things like that. She did not like, she thought almost everything I did was like, that's satanic, that's the devil, you know? I'm like, I'm gonna listen to my metal, Mom, screw you.
No, my son, he's on the dark side.
Exactly, yeah.
Anarchy.
Yeah, so going through that, obviously, there was not like, you know, acceptance for me to just on my own or support around me to dive into it. So I still have my books and I'm like always reading. And then it's like I have friends that I'm close to, and I feel like I've always just been drawn to psychology, or just like how the human brain works in individuality. So I think zodiac signs kind of put an archetype with that, like, oh, this friend is like this. Oh, wow, that kind of matches like, you know, the signification that it says with this friend telling me that they are in Aries. You know, so just like diving deeper and deeper into that. And I think if anything, it's a big tool to not only understand yourself, but understanding the world around you. And another thing that's big to me is communication, you know, speaking effectively, which means speaking someone else's language. If I know what's real to you, what's important to you, I know how to navigate life with you, you know? And yeah, I feel like that helps out with just connecting with people in general. So the interest was always there. I feel like it was pictured as psychology. But then once I began to study psychology, you have like your Jung, stuff like that, where it's like, okay, you literally find out most of their stuff is based off of astrological archetypes. And then I would say about 7 years ago or so, I'm just like diving deep into it, astrology, like studying, reading everything I knew about myself. I had like 3 Scorpio best friends. We're all like Scorpios. We're all just like super into it. And a signification about Scorpios is kind of seeing the unseen, which is a big part of astrology. You got to see the stars or the dark, kind of looking into that stuff. So maybe that helps with why the natural attraction was there. And I had a friend that was like more into it than I was. And she would always read stuff to me. Actually, Jasmine, she would always read stuff to me all the time. And as crazy as it sounds, I always felt like I had the insight of seeing people for who they were without the archetype to attach to it. Does that make sense? And I feel like if anything, astrology just gave me a language to speak to it. Like I feel like I can almost look at someone and say, okay, I can see who you are, the truest version of yourself, whether you see it or not, as well as your deepest emotional desires. But astrology gave me a language to be like, okay, it's because of this, to explain it to someone else so I don't seem like a crazy person. Yeah, and then I'll say more recently, about 4 years ago, I got a birth chart reading that literally told me, hey, you would be great in astrology. And I'm like, I don't want that. I'm weird enough. I don't want to keep diving down that path. And this was literally right around my Saturn return where I quit my job and I'm just gravitating towards like mysticism and stuff like along that path that I had that done. And literally like, oh, you should be an astrologer. You'd be great at it. And I kind of rejected it first. And then I'm like doing tarot cards for myself, which I do just like not actively much. It's like kind of every full moon. And I'm like, okay, I want guidance. Like, where should I be looking to? And I pulled the card that literally says, look to the stars. And I'm like, okay, like I'm going to stop ignoring this and just like legitimately like study it. And since then, it's just been a black hole. Like there's nothing, I feel like, there's not too many things that excite me more than it's because it's a black hole. Like it's never ending. And the idea of how I feel like correlates with religion, which is funny, people are opposed to it. If you want to say God, let's say God encompasses obviously more than just what we have here on Earth. It's going to be, is he not the sky? Is he not the stars? So is astrology not a language for him to send messages to people? I don't think, no matter what your religion is, what your view is, I don't think anyone's left here with no devices of understanding. And I think the stars are one of the biggest messengers and energetic influence.
Those are the angels?
Yeah, that too. Whatever you want to call them. Whatever spirit guides, whatever you want to call them.
So what can you define like the mechanisms of astrology, of how it goes into play on someone's person? Like you can look at someone's birth chart. Is it like, my question is, does it have to do with energy that you got the moment you breathed your first breath, and you were born, and it was set, your chart was set. Is it more so, did we take on the energy of the sky that was, the place, everything, I can't even question it right now. Everything that was in place at the time that you were born.
Ooh, this is gonna go a little deep. So
that's what we're here for. We like it deep.
It depends on if you believe that you chose this life or not, and you have the concept of a star seed, even where it's like you believe consciousness is projected onto human beings in that moment of birth. It's like you kind of have this path, this fate that you're entrusted to before you're even born. And did consciousness get projected onto inside of your parent to fulfill that to the best way possible is one way to look at it. And it just so happened, when you think about it, no one controls when a baby is born except for the baby. And theoretically, the baby decides when it comes out based off of when it's the most sensitive to the astrological placements. So, for instance, you being a Gemini, you're at the beginning or the end?
I'm at the very first day.
You're at the very first day. Yep. So you would have approached life totally different. So you decided, okay, no, I'm going to come out here instead of earlier so I can fulfill what I need to. That sets up the best way possible for me to fulfill why I came to this planet in the first place. And then I think it's literally as simple as when you think about, people ask, oh, where are you from? like that matters. You know, it's like it kind of does matter. Your environment, right? Your close proximity to things influence who you are. So think about it on a macro level. What about the astrological, the celestial environment? You know, if you believe in energetic influence, you know, it's literally the same thing, just on a grand scale. So at that moment that you took your first breath, you decided to do it at that moment. You know, that's when you were the most stimulated, the most sensitive, and that just, I feel like, infuses your life path and gives you the tools that you need to do it.
Oh my God.
But I don't, like, explain that more. Like, you, like, the baby wants to be born, and this is what you, when you're born, this is what you need to do in your life. I know I'm trying to like break it down a little bit for someone that, you know,
so like
that's went over my head a little bit.
There's 2 ways to explain it because it depends on your personal beliefs. Some people don't believe in the idea of fate. You know what I mean? They feel like everything is just built from the moment on. But if you do believe in that you have almost a purpose, a calling, a reason, a mission why you're here, let's say it's like a gamble. You know, like everything's moving all around, but it's like if you hit this button, you know, you get the cards that you need to do why you came here. You know, if you hit it differently, you'll get something different, but it's like, you know already what your mission is. You know, as a Gemini, it's like, okay, if you were a Taurus, you know, it's like if your mission in life was to host a radio show, you know, ask people questions, gather as much information as possible, you're going to be like, okay, if you're right there on the borderline, like you're going to be like, okay, no, I'm going to wait and I'm going to come out when I can be a Gemini, because that's going to give me the energy influence that I need to fulfill this goal that I know I have. I feel like from birth, we know who we are. We know why we're here. And a lot of life experiences, it's literally just reminding you who the fuck you are.
True.
We forget it. You know, religion, our parents condition us to forget who we are. But when you think about these natural proclivities that everyone has, even down to your fears, whether you think it's from a past life or regardless it wasn't this life, you know what I mean? It's like, you know that already. Just as a baby, you can't express it. You know, you can't say, no, mom, I'm supposed to be a dancer. You know, like, yeah, you know.
Oh, they want to be a doctor.
Yeah, and they're like, no, you're gonna be this instead. You know, so a lot of people that gets erased, like up to like the age of 4. You know, it's like, you know who you are, and around that age is when it all just gets erased, which ironically is when people start school.
So that makes it interesting. So that, for the purpose of life, that's the struggle of being a human being. You need to figure out what is important in your life, the purpose of your life. If, you know, you're conditioned to do all these different things, like say your parents wanted you to become a doctor and you never wanted to be a doctor, but you did everything, and now you're a doctor, but you're unhappy. How is someone supposed to uncondition theirself to follow their dreams or their passion?
Uncondition yourself. I feel like paying attention to your proclivities, your desires, your fears, I feel like tells people a lot about themselves, even their resistances.
Like you were resisting astrology.
Yeah, definitely. I was resisting.
Why were you resisting?
Why was I resisting? Because I feel like, okay, it's not practical. I feel like it's not practical. And even as a child, I was already kind of drawn to it. You know, when it comes to the sense of survival, you know, things are conditional. Okay, you have to make this money. You have to do this. It has to make sense to people. I was like, okay, do I want to take that risk? You know, and the thing is, I could have just ignored it and maybe I would have been successful at something else, but I wouldn't have been internally fulfilled. Like I would have skipped my mission, my purpose here. And I feel like once you do that, you notice the power that comes along with living like that. You know, the opposite of living with force or power. You know, it's like, do you want the support of everything around you, or do you just want to force your way through life? Which anything you're forcing is, you may get what you want, but it causes a lot of damage.
How many chances in life do you think you get for signs and, you know, natural things that happen that people usually ignore? You know, I'm walking down the street, I see, you know, a flyer on the ground that says I should do this, you know?
Yeah.
Or, you know, there's many signs that we see every day that we do not even, you know, even acknowledge or even care to, you know,
100%.
Care to see. You know?
I think almost every experience is a sign. Every experience is literally a reflection of your state of consciousness. Every experience, every person you encounter is literally shows you where you are in life, and how you grasp it is based off of your current state of consciousness. And I think the signs are literally screaming at us everywhere, all day, every moment. But it takes understanding them, learning the language, which is, you know, through numbers, through experiences with people, you know, through even down to colors. Yeah, they're definitely there. So I feel like I wouldn't say how many chances you get. Like eventually your spirit guides, whatever we're gonna call them, are gonna say, okay, I'm tired of giving you.
No, that's what I'm wondering. Like if you never said, okay, that tarot card right there,
yeah,
said look into the stars,
yeah,
and you ignored it again.
Exactly. I think it would keep on happening. On the other side, I think whatever I did choose to do instead of that would not be as fulfilling, and that's a sign. You know what I mean? This like emotional starvation that you're gonna feel. Well, certainly, it's like with success, it's like, okay, I may have like wealth and stuff like that, but it's like you're starving internally. Your soul is starving.
You might have become a therapist.
And then a life coach.
yeah, definitely. But everyone's obviously different as far as their ability to perceive the signs and how they view them.
Mm-hmm.
Like definitely, like that's like no one's equal. I hate the bull crap that people preach. Everyone's equal. Absolutely, no one is equal. The only thing that people all have in common is the opportunity to grow. But even that capacity at which they grow is totally different for everybody.
Of course. Can you comment more on angel numbers and like the signs that the universe sends to you because it's trying to talk to you?
Mm-hmm. I think the angel numbers are a very popular one lately.
What is an angel number?
The synchronicity as far as like repetitive numbers is a big one. We'll say, throw some out there, 5, 55. It's like, okay, your change is coming into your life. You know, if you're consistently seeing this, consistently seeing it. I bring up a personal example of the number 4, which literally hunted me for like a good year straight. Just 444s everywhere. Like everywhere I looked, like everyone, like the time, the license plate, the time, like why is this number sticking out to me so much? And the number 4, my great grandmother, who kind of raised me, one of the closest people to me in my life, she died on March 1st, which is like 3 + 1 = 4. And then it didn't really hit me until the moment I'm like driving. Actually, I was like driving Lyft a little bit, and it was like 4:44. Someone gets in my car, and their name is Priscilla. And this was like the day that I was just like having the worst day ever. I was like, all right, I'm just not feeling life today. Like this life just sucks, you know? And that was my great grandmother's name. Literally the next 2 passengers' name were Priscilla. The last one, the total that I got was $4.44. Like it would just like haunting me, like trippy, like, okay, how can you ignore this? You know, and I feel like, okay, obviously she's trying to, encourage me, communicate with me. This was like maybe a year or so after she passed. But yeah, little stuff like that, right? Like the signs are always there. It's just whether or not we're coherent, conscious enough to understand them, to see them, even down to names of people that you meet. Colors, but back to the angel numbers, obviously 1111 is a huge one that everyone kind of gives so much credit to.
But real quick before you get into that, what did you do different? Like you saw the 444s, what happened? What was the end of the story?
What would I do? Oh, okay. What did I do different? I kind of just like, I believe in like praying to your ancestors. And it was literally just like the encouragement that I need. And just everything she stood for. She was like the most positive person ever. Like even like when
so you correlated it.
Yeah. Like I needed that encouragement.
She wanted to talk to you. She was like, hey, he's having a hard day. He needs to talk to me. Here you go. Like, that's beautiful. That's sweet.
Definitely. Like no matter what, like literally on her deathbed, like she's smiling. Like no matter what's going on in the world, like she was like the happiest, most positive person. So it was like, okay, like if she can do that, like obviously it's not that bad. Like I need to, adopt some of that energy. Thanks for sending it my way, Okay. But yeah, so the angel numbers, 1111 is obviously a super popular one. And with that, people have their different significations for what it means. But I think anytime you are encountering these numbers consecutively, it's kind of a message of alignment that you're where you are, where you're supposed to be, an encouragement to stay on that path. It's like when things just kind of line up. Think of it as like a checkpoint. Okay, you made things add up to get here. Now take this as encouragement to keep it going. And obviously the all ones, and I think everyone believes that's like success.
Each other in 333.
333. I have a friend that said he's all into numerology, and he was like, 333. It's Jesus' number. It's Elvis's number. It's Michael Jackson's number. So something like that. Yeah. And he's like, he's all trying to, and he's like saying it's the way I write the name. Have you ever heard of that? Like the letters with numerology. And he's like trying to rearrange his name, his artist name. And he's like, to make it 333 because
he wanted to equal 333.
Or 33, I think.
He wanted to have 333 in his
like
name.
the Chaldean values for each number, or are we talking ruins?
there I would have to make a quick phone call. But it was something with the name and it would add up to a certain number.
Yeah.
Does that ring a bell? Or
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's the idea
how you
there's
spell
power,
your name.
There's
like,
power in certain numbers, and I'll say, and you can even transfer them into words, into letters. So the Calderian system is basically each number represents a letter, you know, and then the total of that number has a certain signification about it. Like I'll say literally my website, and I didn't do this on purpose. Like when I added up and got doing numbers, which ran Zander equals the healer, the teacher. I'm like, oh, I guess if I want that, actually, I don't know. I guess I'll stick
it's accurate.
with it, you know, like
it's accurate.
Yeah, so there's definitely things.
I think maybe it was that because he gave me a website and I type in the name and be like,
yeah,
say what, you know, kind of like spiritual healer,
yeah, and then,
educator, whatever.
Exactly, which each number signifies something.
Artist.
And then there's you know, the ruins, which is more like correlated to almost Hebrew, where it's like, okay, the letters have a number value, and you spell things out like that. And even that, I mean,
well, maybe more of that because he's into that, more of that,
more of
Jewish
that, like,
and
okay. Yeah, I mean, like I have on an ancient ruin shirt, literally, like right now.
There you go. There's a sign.
There's a sign right there. All right, universe. It's in the building right now.
Yeah.
You want a mic? Let's get another mic.
I know, right?
Seriously. But I found it kind of funny because it was like he was trying to arrange his name so he could get the proper answer.
Yeah, that's interesting. A lot of people do that, believe it or not.
It's like what? But you can't do it. You're like trying to change, you know, I guess history or change your future or something. I don't know.
No, I think you're trying to use energetic influence. You know what I mean? Where it's like, okay, if I know this is a good day, think about someone getting married. If I know this is a lucky day, why would I not have my marriage on this day?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's just using the power of energetic influence, which each number apparently has. So yeah, I know a lot of people that, and believe me, it's huge in Hollywood, like down to signage and numbers that people use in movies that people don't know. It's just like literally unknown language, even in like Harry Potter. Like every almost movie you can pull up and be like, even down to like the ruins. Like I said, these are the symbols that kind of have different number values as well.
Those are numbers.
They equate to certain number values. And I would say a strange one is like the shape of the light post. You know, like in the ruin language, that literally means light. So like years ago, before those were even made, they had a language. Like think about like you go into Egypt or something, you know, and have the hieroglyphs and stuff like that. It's like, yeah, that equates to literally what we're creating now. So a lot of people will implement it, like I said, to absorb the energetic influence of whatever it is they're trying to create. You know, like I have friends where they will take months trying to like perfect their name of their website or
it's the same example, kind of like that. Then I'm like,
yeah,
I'm kind of like in the end, I'm like, just do it. You know, I don't know. It doesn't always have to fit perfect, right?
I agree. Like I said, from my experience, it always works backwards for me. Like I look at all these resources as simply confirmation. You know, it's like if it's not working for you and this is what your heart desired, you may be living with force instead of power. Like you're trying to force it. Maybe that's not you.
That's the correct word. Probably force. Trying to make something. But if it puts in positive energy and mindset, I guess what's wrong with it?
Yeah, wrong with it. But I think it also a little bit of an imposter, you know? Like, are you that aligned? Or it's like you just really want to be, you know, like I said, I think all of these tools, it should just be confirmation, not so much like, oh, you're creating this life, you know, I feel like there's some trouble with that.
So numerology and astrology definitely go hand in hand, or there's some elements within each other that correlate.
Yeah, 100%, definitely. I'm not too deep into numerology. It's definitely next on my list of all the things I want to study, but they definitely correlate for sure. I mean, when you think about it, down to the birth date, like those are numbers.
Yeah.
You know, when you think about astrology being divided into certain sections, you know, the amount of each houses and stuff like that, even down to the number of planets. You know, those numbers obviously, I think, instill this sense of completion with astrology. Definitely. Yeah, the idea of the cycles with each, you know, each planet and their cycles as well. I just think about what those numbers actually mean. I think gives a lot of signification for sure.
Can you go a little bit more in like houses? What you're just saying, like what are houses? That term. I mean, I hear it a lot. I read it a lot, but I honestly, when I see like, oh, your house is in this, and I'm like, I don't know what that means.
So okay,
Houses like the house?
Ooh, houses.
Houses?
So your birth chart is broken down into houses. Look at the houses as 12 different segments, and each house is basically an aspect of your life. So this particular area or arena of your life.
Okay, I know what you're talking about now.
You know, does that make sense?
Well, I know what my chart looks like, so I'm assuming like it's all broken up with the lines and diagonal lines and triangles. And
yeah, so each of those segments,
is a house.
12 segments are houses. Those houses represent the different arenas in which you express the other placements. You know, like if your sun is in the 7th house of relationship and marriage and partnership, it's like a lot about your sense of self, your ego is going to be attached to that. It's going to be expressed in that particular area of life.
Like as a whole, right? Like not even, because I thought, or I mean, when I would see it, I would be confused because I was like, how many houses are you in? Like, I was like, wait. But it's I guess more so, it's specifically to one that surrounds your whole life, basically. Like,
okay. So with that, everyone has 12 houses. And this will piggyback off of psychology and life coach, where it's like literally everyone that you meet is a reflection of you. And I know everyone hears that lately, or the whole like mirror thing, but astrology actually depicts that, where the houses consume every single zodiac.
Yeah.
So whether or not you have a planet there, this particular arena of your life, you may be like this sign that you hate.
Okay, that makes it simpler. I was always so confused. Like I was like, wait, like how can I be a house of this one and then say, so thank you, you simplified that.
Yeah, and then obviously wherever your planets are placed, it's going to be a lot more emphasis on that particular house. But every house is alive, takes action in your life, you know, but it becomes ignored because like, oh, there's no planets there, so people don't really focus on it unless you're actually like an astrologer. But I think it's important to focus on when it comes to relating to other people. There's definitely people in my life where I feel like, okay, when it comes to, I'm just going to throw things out there, finances, I may be a lot more passive, you know, but other areas of my life, I'm like super aggressive. You know, and it's like I look at other people, it's like, oh, why aren't you like more aggressive? You know, it's like, oh, you're actually like that too, you know, in certain areas of your life.
Oh, okay, that makes way more sense. Okay. I was always just under the impression, like, I just did it. Whenever someone would tell me that, my mind would just go blank. Like I was just like, oh, can't follow after that. But thank you. As far as like astrology goes, get a little closer. As far as astrology goes, I mean, what's the most fun you've had with it? Like, because I'm sure it's a whirlwind of stuff.
It is, and like I said, it's a never-ending black hole. I can explain a recent discovery I made about my Saturn return, which is a pretty cool story. So Saturn for me, and this will kind of explain the houses as well. Saturn for me particularly is in my 7th house. The 7th house is relationship, marriage, partnership. And Saturn is there, which I said kind of has a lot to do with limitations as well. My whole entire life, never, ever even fantasized about dating anyone. And a lot of people want to date me, like most people kind of like
talk your shit. Flex,
a lot
flex
of people
on
want to date me, and it was never even crossed my mind. The idea of like marrying someone, being in a relationship, I felt like that was like the most ridiculous thing ever. Wow, like this is something that everyone else wants, you know, never crossed my mind. And literally the day down to the exact degree of my Saturn return, I met the person that I'm currently dating. We've been dating for like 2 years now, like to the day. Like I was like, and I backtracked this, and I was like looking at my phone and our very first text message, and it happened on the day that I met her. Like it's crazy. So like, where it's like I said, those walls that I had, those limitations, like completely just like gone now, particularly in this area of my life. That explains the house.
You just woke up, you're like, I want to be in love.
I mean, and like I said, it was out of my control. It was just like, oh, like I met this person, sent a text message, and life just developed after that. Yeah, like literally on that day. So stuff like that is trippy to just see how profound or exact these transits are. Other than that, I like to kind of do synapses or like relationship comparison of people's charts, which I feel like is going to get very, very popular soon. As far as people using it for compatibility, I guess.
Yeah. I'm surprised they don't use it already.
See, they use it for the sun.
Oh yeah, that's right. Just the one sign.
Yeah, they use it for the sun. But for me, when I look at relationship compatibility, I think Venus and the moon are way more important.
You're right. I've actually looked that up before. I'm like, is Gemini compatible with Capricorn?
No.
Yeah, and I see people out here
I'm
and
just
they're
curious,
like,
you
oh,
know?
I would never date this person, you know, like, but when you get into the moon, it's like, okay, what's the deeper level of dating? It's like emotional fulfillment. That's what people actually want. They're with this person, like, that's really what they want.
Yeah.
And the next is like what you're attracted to, which would be Venus. You know, it's like people don't dive into that. They see the compatibility and it's like, oh, we're both air signs, but it's like, why are we not getting along? And say, okay, because you guys need two totally different things. You guys offer two totally different things. You express yourself totally different. There's a lot more into that I feel like it's cool just to see people's compatibility, as well as comparing charts. My chart is very similar to Aleister Crowley, I'll say, a mystic square, which is very, you guys know who that is? Okay.
I don't know. Do you?
The Crowley, that last name sounds familiar, but
it's probably good you guys don't know who he is. I mean, he is
okay, we'll look him
one
up.
of the most famous like occultists.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good way or bad way?
I mean, our chart's similar, so obviously I think it's good. Yeah, the whole like sex, magic, ritual, life, all that stuff.
I feel like I have heard his name, but I can't right now. Like I'm blanking. Fuck. It's gonna bug me. I'm gonna fucking research this once we're done.
Yeah, Aleister Crowley. So I think that's interesting to do, and it's like kind of gives you a glimpse of like what you may have the potential to be. You know, you found a celebrity who has like a chart similar as yours. It's like, oh wow, like this is actually like what I could be doing. You know, like I think that's cool. I haven't started any like rituals or anything like that yet. So.
As far as like, you know, dating and stuff, who asked for the birth chart first? You or her?
Oh, she never even thought about.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Have you converted her? You converted her?
Definitely, definitely, for sure. Which ironically, our sun signs are not compatible at all, but everything else is like, okay, this is perfect.
And that's where it goes. It goes back into your other placements, right?
Yeah.
Compatibility between them.
Yeah. She's a Leo.
I love Leos.
Leos are great. Yeah, Leos are probably the most in my life, I would say.
Same.
My mom's a Leo, so maybe that's why.
Interesting.
But so many people I meet turn out to be Leos, just right off the bat.
I attract a lot of Leos and Taurus, and those placements together, it's the same.
Really?
Yeah, it's so weird. I'm like, oh, it's just my toxic cycle.
Yeah, Leos. Yeah, Leos, Geminis. This is what I think, and I believe it too, but maybe you disagree or agree, but I find you have your chart, it describes your potential, it describes what type of person you are, but I feel like even as you age through life, you should be able to evolve and change those characteristics that, you know, the chart tells you should be or not to be or whatever. You should be able to evolve and break away from some of those traits, right? And become a better human being, or just
That's
go
like
on
shadow work, right?
Yeah, go on a path that you choose to be, which is maybe the right path and maybe not the path that is in your chart.
100%. And I think that has a lot to do with your karmic cycle as far as why you have this chart. You know what I mean? If it's going to be when it's like this where you're supposed to be, or this is where you actually need to break away from. I think a lot of people use astrology like, oh, it's an excuse. I'm a Gemini.
Yeah,
that's why I'm.
I hear that all the time. I hear that all the
Right?
time. Like, oh, I'm a Gemini. I'm supposed to be this way.
No,
I'm like, no, you're supposed to work from that.
Yeah, and that's what
exactly. Like, I feel like strength. I mean, knowledge is the biggest strength to overcome anything. Once you know, it can no longer control you. Not you just like, oh, I'm at this whim, but I can't do anything about it. No, that should just make you more self-aware to, you know, go about pursuing or overcoming the challenge a lot better. You know, but then there's also the side where it's like, for you to have the most fulfilling life and have the experiences you're supposed to, maybe you are supposed to be like this. But yeah, I think it's more so focusing on these are the challenges you're gonna have. You have the choice, obviously free will, to either act like this or not. You know, like I'll say there's a lot of things Then I feel like about Scorpio significations where I feel like, okay, this is so how I am, but I want to not be like that. Like definitely, I want to not be like that. And it takes, having that conversation with self. And it goes back to, okay, we'll say people that you're attracting. I've been attracting a lot of Leos lately, just in the past 3 years. And when I think about the qualities about Leos that are so different than Scorpio, I also recognize, wow, like I actually need to learn from them. So when you say you're attracting these people, it's like, yeah, that's going to change the people you attract, because what you need to learn at that moment, it's going to change.
Maybe they need to learn from me.
Yeah, maybe. But yeah, you're not just stuck there. Like you make the choice, and I feel like that's the difference between fate and destiny. Like I feel like fate is just, it's going to be what it's going to be, but destiny takes you being fully aware of that fate and actualizing it. Like that's your will. Everyone has, let's think about clothing, fashion design, interest of mine. If I give you the same fabric right now, we all get the same fabric. It's like we get the same resources, everything. What we do with it is going to be totally different. Totally different. So yeah, you definitely have willpower involved, most certainly. And then I also think it relates with how self-aware people are, how aligned they are with their true self as well. But the whole excuse thing, like I just feel like
that.
Thing ever.
Well, I just feel like that's what gets usually thrown out there. People use that because I'm supposed to be this way. But again, it's only probably to their sun sign.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, they're like, I'm that's just who I am. Like, okay, this, so is it actually beneficial for you? Is it serving you right now? It could have been serving you in other years of your life. Is it serving you right now? Can you learn from someone else? If you keep having to say this, obviously that just shows the resistance of somewhere that you need to push yourself a little further. Like you need to question, why am I like this? Instead of just, oh, this is who I am. Why am I like this? Is it effective right now? Because philosophy, I don't believe in really good or bad people, but I believe in good and bad timing. I think you were the way you were for a reason. You built that at that time, but that doesn't last forever. You may be doing that at a bad timing, and that makes a bad person. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no,
Yes, it does,
definitely. Can you dive into shadow work and how that goes into growing, from your zodiac signs or where your placements are?
Yeah, definitely. Shadow work, I feel like, is just facing yourself, really facing yourself, diving into the roots of your psyche, the shadows, the spaces that are not seen, that are not even in your foreconscious. That's why I feel like a lot of people feel like they're doing it, but it's a never-ending thing. You have people, I did my shadow work, like I'm healed. It's like it's a never, it's definitely a never-ending thing.
It's like a conscientious thing you have to do every day.
Like therapy again.
Yeah,
for yourself. Like you're holding yourself accountable every day. Like, hey, don't be a piece of shit.
Most certainly. So I think helping you understand your motives, your intentions clearly, while silencing the outside noise, I feel like it brings you back to the foundation of self, for your motives of who you are. Uncovering, fully accepting your uglies, the things that you don't like about yourself, whether it be personality or experiences that you've gone through, and diving in deep enough that you understand why you were there or gain a lesson out of it, to me is shadow work. Uncovering the unseen parts of your own psyche.
You would be doing the shadow work? Or is that, I mean, how do...
So personally, I do think shadow work is done with interaction with other people. I do think that is a form, but a lot of other people that practice, any type of therapy feel like that's something you have to do on your own. I don't believe that. I do think there are certain people that can push you into that space. And honestly, if I had to coin what I do that's special, that's literally me, like pushing people into those dark spaces, like helping them see about their self, where it's like, they can't see it, but I can see it. I can see it, and I'm going to highlight it in such a way that it's like you can't run away from it.
That's where your life coaching comes into play. And
most certainly. Some people, may hate that. Some people may be like, "Oh, this person's horrible," but I'm like, no, I'm going to push you in that deep end. Like, let's go. Let's unveil your uglies. Oh, I see them. Wow, they're cute. Like, oh, you didn't notice them before? Wow. So doing that in a very subtle way. Yeah, helping people see those unseen parts of themselves. But yeah, shadow work. But it can be done on your own as well. And I feel like the start is just questioning all of your motives, everything about yourself, why you do this. Like, what do you actually need from this? Like, I feel like there's always something deeper there besides just the action that is taken. There's usually some, when you think about a title that somebody wants, say if it's at a job or something like that, it's like on the surface, it's like, oh, they just want a promotion. But it's like, no, what emotional fulfillment that may have been neglected years ago are you getting from that title, from that position? Just really thinking about how much deep, and it goes like it usually always back to childhood, when it comes to your emotional desires, fulfillments, but that puts in perspective your motives in life, why you're doing something. So they're continually questioning everything you do, which a lot of people don't. They're good at questioning other people, but questioning their self would be the start of shadow work.
And that may be the hardest question of all. Right?
Yeah.
I mean,
no one ever wants to be the villain of their own story.
I know, but how don't you need a villain be a villain to yourself to get anywhere?
Yeah, you do.
I mean,
That
that's
separates people that are grown and people that aren't. And the sad reality is that a lot of times people don't want to be the villain, so they don't try to have those conversations with themselves. They try and find excuses and other things and make other people the villain. And I guess that's where shadow work comes in, is you got to sit down and be like, yo, for everything that has happened to you and you're reacting like, oh, why? You have to also acknowledge your play in it.
Yeah, responsibility.
Accountability.
Definitely. Responsibility, accountability. And that's the thing, obviously, the ego wants to defend itself and justify everything it's doing. So not even so much that they don't want to, even if they do ask the question, it's like they won't see it. It's like puts yourself in this very vulnerable place that's not being dominated by ego to just defend everything that you're doing is right. Makes yourself seem like the good person all the time. I think a good practice as well, not to like be too hard on yourself, but anytime you get into any type of conflict with someone, start processing it as I was wrong. And let me see how I was wrong. Or like more so, how could I have done something different that resulted in a different effect? So I feel like, and that's a tricky space where you don't want to be beating yourself up like all day, every day, but you kind of should. You know what I mean? When you really realize that every decision you make creates your life, and even the things that you feel like are out of your control, it's like, okay, there was something you were supposed to get out of it. That's why I was welcomed into you. There's billions of people here. Why are you experiencing this? But yeah, definitely it takes being okay, being in this vulnerable place, and looking at yourself as the villain sometimes. Question, oh, why did this? This is like messed up. Instead of just always defending yourself, which is a very natural thing. I mean, I think it takes spiritual strength first to even get there. I think it takes mindfulness practices. I think it takes knowing how to be the observer in a situation before even get into like, oh yeah, let me do my shadow work. Because if not, it's just going to be like, oh, I didn't do anything wrong. Like, obviously, like, why do I even have to think about it? If I thought it was wrong, I wouldn't have done it. Or some people are really, really good at, I'm going to meditate on this and call it shadow work and justify like why this happened. And it's really not it. Like, it's really not it at all. Like, I talk to people, and once again, it's like in my work, it's like, whether you guys think this sounds crazy, I see it, I know it, like, regardless. Like, I see it and I know it, whether like they don't. And it's like, I'll ask them a question, and they're like, oh yeah, so I figured out when I was doing my shadow work that like, this is why I did this. Let's say like relationships, which is a big one. Somebody told me, so they're in a very toxic relationship, and they know it's bad for them and they want to break up, but they can't. And I'm like, okay, well, why? Like,
the obvious question,
like as simple as it sounds, like, why? And they're like, oh, let me think about that. Like, I'm going to meditate and do my shadow work. And I'm like, why'd you even dive into this relationship so quickly? And their response was something like, oh, because I just felt like, I was doing so good in other areas in my life. So I just felt like I needed a relationship. So I just jumped into one. Is that really what you told yourself?
It's like a dumbass idea. I mean,
like, they were so serious.
But
like,
they meditated and justified that.
Yeah. I'm like, is that really what you told yourself? Like, wow, okay. Yeah, or it's the whole thing. A lot of people that are in full-blown relationships say, okay, like, why are you in this relationship? Like, why do you feel stuck in it? Oh, because I'm a nice person. I don't want to hurt that person. Yeah, like the ego is going to be like, how do I make myself look good? How do I justify like the foolishness I'm doing? Because you're a nice person. And my response is, you should start being nice to yourself. Like, you're such a nice person. Like, let's start by being nice to yourself. And
well, they're also not being nice to the other person.
Exactly. They're usually the worst thing that ever happened to that person. The worst thing. They're usually horrible people, but they're like, oh, it's because I'm such a nice person. Like, no, you're taking what you can out of it. You're holding on to it. Like, and then eventually, if you know it's going to end, like, why are you even dragging this person through it? You know, like, it's selfish. It really is. Yeah, they'll say that they're a nice person.
The thing is, I feel like a lot of people come up with where they should start their shadow work, but then they interpret it in a way so it doesn't, make them look bad. Because like someone can be like, "Oh, it's because I'm a nice person." The shadow work should be like, "Okay, are you really?" Like, go back into what you define as nice, But they're gonna be like, "Oh, but I'm a nice person, so that's why I can't leave this." Like, it's crazy. It's really crazy when you, and I mean, as a life coach, I'm sure you like hear it all and you're like, "Oh, fuck."
Yeah, definitely. That's why I do feel like it's something you should do with a life coach, and not just any particular life coach. I'll say I differ than most life coaches a lot. I lean more on the expanding consciousness side of life coach versus the practical advancement life coach. And I think someone that is very in tune, hyper intuitive person, whatever people want to call them, mind readers, psychics, whatever weird terms people want to play. Like, I feel like
psychic. Ooh, that's a sign right there. Psychic across the street.
There you go.
There you go, guys.
Did it just show up?
The universe is just doing it.
Yeah,
right now.
it just.
And it's
We all just noticed it right now.
And it's purple. Let's not talk about that.
Yeah, purple. Is that your favorite color?
No, it's not my favorite color, but I mean,
it's a powerful color.
Yeah.
All right, colors go into.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure go
All
into.
right, we'll do that for another show.
Oh,
yeah,
God.
definitely. Yeah, but yeah, it's like
colors, numbers, and stars. I feel like I'm in kindergarten.
I mean, is that fundamental? Is that fundamental?
Well, you said it. You forget everything by age 4. So
you do.
You replace the definitions with other ones.
But isn't it true? They say you're always a child. You just have to adapt to life.
And that's where astrology comes in.
Yeah.
It teaches you how to be a child again.
Yeah.
Remind yourself.
Definitely.
Rebirth your inner child. That's a huge one in astrology, right? Your inner child is a huge aspect in astrology, or like what goes into play.
Certainly.
Dating enough people. Like, I know my stuff about astrology. I get the like, so what time are you born? Every other week,
Oh, yeah?
I'm a very lonely person, but
Sure that's all they're doing with the time?
oh no, they're getting the date, the times, and they're like, all right.
So did they stop talking to you afterwards?
No.
Has that ever happened? Like someone asked for your chart or like your sign and they're like, no, it's not gonna work out.
No, I've never had that experience.
Never.
I had like but then we have a fun time and they're like, oh, it's because it's your Sag. And I'm like, shut the fuck up.
Yeah, that's funny. Scorpio and Gemini, probably the most misunderstood signs. I feel like those are the two signs that are highly like people repel.
Yeah. I love Scorpios. Honestly, they're most like intellectually stimulating people I've ever met. Like, and because I guess
you're Scorpios now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that you're intellectually stimulated right now.
No, it's just like I like you said. I think like those two signs are like the most misunderstood, villainized a lot.
I think like Gemini is popular. Like for some reason, like everyone thinks they know what a Gemini is because it gets thrown out so much. Like
it's like, oh,
Two-Face.
it's
Two-Face. Yeah, twins.
And I'm like, no.
Which is
Party, fun.
I'm like, no, it's
which is true.
Backstabber.
Oh, I've gotten that one a lot. I'm like, oh.
Yeah, I think that's the easiest
All the negative
one.
qualities. I mean, they have the fun quality that people always say. But what is this? Like, I don't know Scorpio traits. So, like,
I mean,
you can
honestly,
write down
what she said, it's literally as deep as it gets.
Okay.
Like the most deep, intense experience, and that's all aspects. It's life,
Well, that seems like a roller coaster relationship.
Yeah, is here to dive as deep as possible to gather literally the most out of life. Which a signification that's really, really bad about Scorpios. They're like obsessed with like death and like dark stuff. But the thing about that is like the hyper awareness of death makes one experience life more fulfilling.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. If you're not afraid to die, you'll live your life even fuller.
Yeah,
wouldn't you say?
And there's a lot of correlation with shamanism and Scorpios as far as shamanism, the belief of going to both worlds and bringing back knowledge and sharing it with the world. As in like, okay, they're down to go all the way to hell and then come back. You know what I mean?
So this is what I saw. I brought you guys a shirt. I love it.
Yeah. So for the good and the bad, it's creating the deepest, most intense experience out of life. Definitely. yeah, like I said, the most intellectual when it comes to emotional depth, like would dive the deep. That's why like air signs and water get along well, because I mean, you want to ask questions, want to know as much as possible, and the Scorpio's like, oh, I've been there to the end. Like let's talk about it, which can be dangerous because Scorpio and
Gemini's like, I want to know, like I want to fucking know.
And then Scorpio's like, okay, let's jump off the cliff to do it, and Gemini's like,
yes. Halfway fall, Gemini's like, fuck.
Yeah.
I always feel that way too. I'm always like, I want to try everything at least once. I'm down for anything, you know? So I don't know if that's from personality or the astrology.
Yeah, I mean, that's what you're supposed to be doing. That's literally what you're
Good. I'm supposed to be doing it. I'm doing things right so far.
Do it. Gather as much information as possible. You are the messenger.
The messenger boy.
Get as much information as possible from everyone and just pursue life, having all those experiences, but never view them objectively. I mean, stay objective, actually, never subjectively. You know, so it's like, okay, you can be on both sides.
Yeah. I understand.
Never with like a subjective opinion. That's how you should be like.
To me, I just find it how like religion, if you look into religion, it actually does hold a lot of astrological like elements of it. Like I just read up on like Jesus Christ.
Yeah, we know him.
Yeah, but like how he's the sun, like the sun and everything. It goes into like the whole
Wait, quick picture.
What's going on, man?
Or video.
Whichever it is. But no, it like going back to what you were saying, like the universe, and even like from personal experience, like my middle name's Gabriella, you know, and that's the angel. Gabriel was the messenger. I'm a Gemini, and you know, so it's like little things like that like I'm like, oh shit, like that's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
And when you look into religion, it actually does
My
take
real
in
name
a
is
lot.
Zachary. Right from Zachariah.
Not biblical at all.
Huh? Zachariah. No? No?
Zachariah?
Yeah, Zachariah.
But yeah, it's just like
That's why we're a duo.
That's what we're doing. He's one side of the Gemini spectrum, on the other one. You know?
Cool. It's pretty clear which is which.
We still have fun here though. But yeah, and it's funny how religion tends to shun those beliefs. When you look back into where it derives from, a lot of the aspects do go back into astrology. I was reading like this thing about like Jesus Christ, he's like the sun, and like the three something about like the three stars are supposed to be the three magic men, and like they survive the sun, and that's why they follow like Jesus, you know, the three wise men following Jesus. It's just like these small correlations about like religion, and then it's funny to see religion just completely be like, no, that's demonic, that's this and this and that, but you can still see the aspect in the story, like in like religious stories.
There's so many correlations. There really is. I mean, if you go deep into religion, even the idea of the tribe of Issachar, I believe, who, they were led by the stars. Like, is that not astrology? But obviously, religion.
Like you said, it's however you want to interpret it. Angels, spirits.
Yeah, whoever you want to call it, but it's all kind of like the same thing. But I think why it's shunned is to direct the power towards a certain way only, you know, also to take information and power away from people.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, okay, if we have access to look at this and do this, then why are we going to church praising this person about it, you know?
Yeah, no. So it's crazy to see because especially now that there's this rise in astrology and like people actually paying attention. I mean, there's always been, but I feel like as the last 2-3 years, I feel like it's definitely
like people being lost because of the pandemic.
That's true. I was like,
I need to know myself and my life and what I need to be doing.
Well, it's like I was telling you off there that social media is a huge influence, and everyone's getting involved into it. Like you said, younger people are usually involved. So, I mean, there's so many people. If you just put the hashtag, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
You're gonna get millions of little posts about astrology, whether they know anything about it or not.
Yeah, definitely.
There's a lot of huge interest, like what you was just saying.
Yeah, definitely a huge interest with the younger generation, which is great. And I don't know if it's like that's just something innate of them or because of technology in general, just they have easier access to it.
We're in the age of Aquarius, man. I was like, apparently.
What does that mean?
Age of Aquarius apparently because it's a new sign, because everything. So basically, there's actually, and it's crazy. There's actually a theory, and it's not an astrologer. He was this poet. I can't remember his name, but he says that everything finishes in cycles. So every 2,000 years, there's an end of a cycle. In astrology, every 2,000 years, you basically go into another house. So, you know, So religion came in during the time of Pisces or whatever, the age of Pisces. So that's why it constructed these different, what religion was, what religion is today. And now that we're in the age of Aquarius, Aquarius being like, something about information, right? Like learning or becoming more informative or kind of shedding old beliefs because of how much access to knowledge you're obtaining now. And because of social media becoming this catapult of information that you can get so easily, that's why you have, younger generations forgetting religion and creating in a sense, their own religion, but also basing off astrology.
Yeah,
right?
their new set of rules. No, that was really good, actually. They're creating their own set of rules and not just following tradition, which is what Aquarius is very much about. And obviously Pisces is supposed to be the closest to God, spiritual depth.
Also, Christianity, you have the fish is like a big, is a big symbol in it. Yeah,
exactly. That was like it all just correlates. What's the point of being like, no, this is demonic or whatever. I don't know what people expect they're gonna get out of their birth chart being read. Like their head's gonna start spinning or something.
Projectile vomiting onto the pasture. No, but yeah, it's astrology is a really, really interesting black hole to go into, and I can see why you're stimulated on that.
It's never ending. But yeah, applying it to life coaching is pretty amazing. Like I said, it just creates a more personal experience for each person. Which I feel like a lot of life coaches are just like, okay, this is what I do. Like, this is my curriculum. It's like, no, I'm going to do it differently per person, and I'm so strange to the point where it's like, if I have your phone number saved in my phone, like I have your sun sign, probably like a little picture right there beside your name. Just like, okay, how do I need to communicate with this person? Like, what's important to this person? All right. Helps to mitigate a lot of issues for sure.
That's cool, man. No, definitely. I mean, it's a good aspect, and also just to feed knowledge to people. As you said, you've converted a couple, so.
Oh yeah.
So do you want to say how we can reach you and your website and contact, whatever you want to do?
Plug in shout outs.
Yes, I can be reached for astrology birth chart readings, coaching sessions, relationship counseling at coachryanzander.com. My Instagram handle is at Zander_PSR.
Alrighty.
Anyone you want to shout out, say hi to?
The moon, the sun, the stars.
All of them. I want to shout out to Mercury just for being in charge of everything that's going on here. Not only because it's about communication, you guys are both ruled by Mercury, and it did a pretty good job. It didn't mess us up too much. Luckily, it's not.
That's where I'm actually Gemini. My Mercury's in Gemini too. So
good for you. Yeah, and to you two. Actually,
right.
Shout out to you two.
All right,
thank you,
show.
All right, thanks, Zander.
Thank you so much. It was an amazing talk. We appreciate you for coming out.
Until next time.
All right, everyone have a good day.
You're listening to Tastemakers
with zbrah Geebs.